Hello and welcome back. All right, well, you know the drill. We've done the worst, we've done the rest. Now it's time to talk about the best. Not an easy list to compile this year, and in truth, if some of these films had come out like last year, then they might have ended up on the meh list. But not to take anything away from them, because in a year that was, as I stated in the earlier video, mostly a combination of mediocre to downright horrific, the good stuff, the stuff that stuck with you in the right way, really stood out. So let's take a time to celebrate these. These are the best films of 2018. Here we go. Number 10, The Hurricane Heist. Fuck you, I love this movie. See, I know this one is probably going to end up on everybody else's worst list, if it ends up at all, because most people probably didn't even bother to see it. But I had an absolute blast with this film. Again, so many of the movies I saw this year were just pompous and up their own ass with their own importance, and it was just nice and refreshing to see one that just knew it had a stupid concept and was having all the fun in the world with that concept. Just serious enough that the action had consequence, but tongue firmly implanted in cheek. This film reminded me very fondly of those really high concept action films from the 90s like Con Air or Broken Arrow, and I love those movies too. Plus, I believe this was either the film I saw right after Red Sparrow or like the second film after Red Sparrow, and boy howdy, was it an awesome palate cleanser. Number 9, The Spinning Man. This was definitely the most artistic film I saw all year. It really used cinema as a visual means of telling its story. It wasn't just kind of set the camera up and, have the actors go. It told a fascinating story, a morally complex story, excellent performance by Pierce Brosnan. I think that really anchored the whole thing. I remember his performance more than I remember the other performances in it after all said and done. And I kind of feel like I owe this movie kind of a debt of gratitude. Like I say, I've been doing these videos for almost 3 years, and my review of The Spinning Man is by far the most viewed. Last check, it had 700 something views. I mean, I don't know what it is about that movie and that review that people seem to really enjoy, but I'm glad they did. Number 8, Swimming with Men. So this is another film kind of like Finding Your Feet, which was in that same kind of genre, later in life person, middle-aged person rediscovering the joy of life. The reason why this one kind of sticks with me a little bit more than Finding Your Feet, I guess maybe because it's a little closer to my experience. I am kind of, at that age, and while I'm not married or, anything like that, I find the struggle of that character and the other characters a little bit more relatable. I thought this film is really summed up beautifully to me in a scene where our main character, throughout the film, he's the other guys on the swim team start calling him Archie, and he finally says, what's up with this Archie thing? He's like, that's short for Archimedes. And this look on his face that he's been given a nickname by his friends, which is a term of endearment, and just how much that meant to him is really just a beautiful moment, and I think it sums up just everything great about this movie. A feel-good film that came along in a year when we desperately needed that. Number 7, Green Book. This movie was a little formulaic, and, I heard one critic say that, it's nothing we haven't seen before. And that is true, but I disagree in the same sense, in that I think the nationalities of the characters really make a difference. It's not just a black guy becomes friends with a white man. It's a black man and an Italian. And I think using those two nationalities, which have more in common with each other than most people might think, really gave a new flavor to the whole we're all not really that different vibe. And, you know, I hate to say it, it's sad that we have to say it in this day and age, but I think these days we need to be reminded that we're not all that different a little bit more than maybe we did a few years ago. That's sad to say, but it's the truth, and the two main actors really pull it off and give you a really memorable on-screen friendship. It was an uplifting movie. Number 6, Bumblebee. Bumblebee. I'm as shocked as you are. If you had told me this time last year that a Transformers movie was going to be on my top 10, and this pretty high up, I would have said you were crazy. But I am more than willing to admit when I am wrong. Bumblebee was one of the most enjoyable films I've seen in a long time. Finally, the Transformers that I grew up with get the love and respect they deserve. Brilliant performance by our lead actor, Haley Steinfeld. I really think she carried this so well. And I went back and looked at her filmography and I realized how many films I've actually seen her in. I was like, oh shit, that was her. But bully to her for really turning in a fantastic role. I've heard rumors that they are actually using this as a reboot as opposed to a sequel, and if that is true, I am going to be so ecstatic. And I hope they bring her back for if they do a sequel, or they keep kind of in that same vein. I would really like to see that. I'd like to see a film called Grimlock, which is this exact movie only with Grimlock. That would just warm the cockles of my heart. Number 5, Bad Times at the El Royale. Oh man, this one was fucked up. But it was fucked up in a way that I just loved. And I said it in the review. What I love about this movie is throughout its advertising campaign and even throughout the film itself, it's constantly trying to convince you that there's a side story, a bigger story, a big mystery. You know, why are there all these viewing rooms? Who's on the film that's, you know, being passed around and all that? And in fact, none of that is the story, and none of that matters. Because what matters is just watching all of these people who seem normal but are completely fucked up and become more fucked up the more you come to know them. I think of the storyline of the woman who's kidnapped her sister, and all you see of her originally is bringing this tied up girl into her hotel room. You're like, oh my god, what's going on? And then it turns out she was kidnapping her away from a Charles Manson-like psycho played by Chris Hemsworth, and he shows up and things just get even more messed up. And I love that. And I really do believe, while Jeff Bridges is, of course, always a great anchor, I do believe the MVP of this movie was Chris Hemsworth, who I think is really stepping out as the standout actor of the Marvel Cinematic Universe at this point in time, because he's shown he can do comedy, he can play scary characters. I really think this guy is gonna shock a lot of people when his, you know, Taurus Thor is done and he's stepping out and trying some new stuff. So if you haven't seen it, and judging by the box office, not a lot of people did, I think you need to check it out, because it's pretty freaking great. Number 4, Christopher Robin. This film was just such a delight. And I think it did something right that not a lot of films do. And I'm thinking of things like another film from earlier this year, Ready Player One. Ready Player One really was trying to tap into that nostalgia dollar, which is so big now, especially for people of my age, reminding them of, video games or movies or whatever. But the problem I had with Ready Player One is that it seemed like its entire premise was, see, remember that existed, remember this existed, oh, let's reference Buckaroo Banzai. Nobody knows what Buckaroo Banzai is. That's relevant. And it never stopped to actually answer the question for our main characters why these things and these nostalgia points were so important to them. The same thing can be true of things like all the Transformers movies up till Bumblebee, or the Ninja Turtle movies, or a lot of these films which try to cash in nostalgia. They don't answer the question of why did that thing mean so much to me. And I think this film, this very quiet, very simple little story, brilliantly captures the nostalgia for something like Winnie the Pooh and and even all your Disney favorites, and does so in a very sincere and not at all cynical kind of way, just to show that you had genuine love for this when you were a kid, and how that love has shaped a lot of the things that came after. And this film beautifully demonstrates that. And it's a nostalgia film that really gets you right where you live, and you love being gotten there. It was a very warm feeling. Number 3, Black Panther. I said it at the end of the top 10 meh films of the year. I said that even though this wasn't a great year at the movies, it was an important one, and some really, really important films landed this year, and Love, Simon was one of them. Black Panther is the other. And I said in previous yearly wrap-up, I said that the Marvel films have kind of fallen into a little bit of a rut, and that's not bad because they're still all good movies, but they're kind of predictable, and you kind of know the beats, and they don't have that epic feel to them anymore. And this year proved me 100% wrong. Black Panther had that epic feel. You felt watching it, you were watching something important, and maybe it is just another superhero movie, but the dedication, the time, the love, the detail that's been put into it by its director and by its cast made it something really, really special. And I think it gives a voice to a group that have not had that character represented for them in a long time. It really, for even now, walking around, the high school I teach at, and hearing not only the black students but the black, professors and whatnot, saying things like Wakanda forever and all that, and having kind of that hero that's theirs, that you can't put a price on that. And if you could, it'd be something like several $1 billion that this movie made. So yeah, I really, really felt like this film brought, it had to do it right, and it came to play. And, I can't think of anything outside of a couple dodgy special effects that could have been done any different or any better. Way to go. Number 2, Creed 2. I debated with myself for a long time if this should be number 1. I went back and forth, and this one and the one that eventually ended up number 1 switched places several times. And what finally landed this one in the number 2 slot is that, if I'm being honest, the film, and I mentioned this in the review at the time, the film really does kind of fall back into that Rocky movie formula. The plot is more formulaic than its predecessor. And if you've seen any Rocky movies up to that point, you kind of could trace the beat progression and all of that. But here's the thing I need to make clear. That is absolutely the only thing I can complain about Creed 2. Creed 2, and again, kind of like it, I was worried it was going to be more like Pacific Rim Uprising, one of these things that we even had to make a sequel. But it really does follow the story. It continues the story, and it continues some stories that I didn't know needed continuing. I mean, if this film is praised for nothing else, the fact that it made a three-dimensional character out of Ivan Drago, of all things, I mean, it deserves an Oscar for that alone, you know? And everybody here came to play. If you're, and I said this again when I reviewed the film originally, if you are not on the Michael B. Jordan train, you need to get on it, because this kid he's the deal. All right, he is gonna be the ruler of Hollywood because he is just that damn good. All right, this is 2 films in the top 5 that star Michael B. Jordan, one right after the other. I mean, that is not a fluke. That is talent and screen presence and just an overall personality we don't see a lot. I hope it's the last one, but this was everything that a Creed sequel should have been, and I can't say how much I love it. And the #1 movie of 2018 is Avengers: Infinity War. Yeah, I mean, I am unapologetic in the fact that I am a comic book fan. I am a proud fan of the Marvel Universe. I'm a proud fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm the defender. I will defend it against any critics. I even love things like Iron Man 2 and Thor 2, which apparently are bad movies now, according to everyone, but I thought they were good. But I got it, I was a little concerned about putting this one at the top of the list because, you always want to have, like, some stuffy, arty film to go, haha, look how sensitive I am, and look how, brilliant a reviewer I am. But you can't escape it. This was, as I look back on the year, and I look back at the movies I've seen and the movies I liked, this is the one that stuck with me. This is the one that had everything. And nary a weak spot to be found. It delivered on everything it's been hyping up for the past 10 years. It delivered on a fantastic villain in Thanos. It was so fun to see all of the different pairings that they came up with. Iron Man, Spider-Man, and Doctor Strange, meeting the Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor, Rocket, and Groot meeting, Peter Dinklage as a enormous dwarf. Black Widow fighting alongside the bodyguard from Black Panther. I mean, it really gave you all of the things that every fan has been dreaming of since these movies kind of came out, and then did it even bigger. I mean, this film is, I hate to use a tired cliche, this film is epic in its scale, in what it delivers. I'd put it up there with, Lord of the Rings or one of the Harry Potter films for how epic it is. And the thing that really put it over the top for me is, and even though I knew this was coming, I knew it was kind of going to happen, not quite to this extent, but I had an inkling something like this was going to happen, but the bad guy won. The bad guy won in the end. And I am hard-pressed to think of a movie where that really was the case. And I know people are immediately going, well, Empire Strikes Back. The bad guys really didn't win necessarily in that one. The rebellion was still alive. Luke was still alive. The worst that happened is Luke had his hand cut off and Han Solo had been captured by Boba Fett. Aside from that, and Rebellion took a beating, but they were still there. They were still fighting back. They were still going through it. Here, the bad guy fucking won. Snapped his fingers, everybody dead. And even though, yes, I know You don't have to tell me. You know, I know that all that's going to get undone in the next one. I know they're going to bring all these characters back. And if you weren't aware of that, the fact that they just this past week dropped the trailer for the Spider-Man sequel, so way to spoil the action of your own sequel there guys. You know, of course it's all going to get undone, but it doesn't take away from that immediate visceral reaction to seeing, you know, Scarlet Witch and Vision and Groot and Star-Lord and Spider-Man and Doctor Strange and all these characters just turning to dust, and that look on their faces and the look of everyone else when they realize they lost the war. It's not something you see a lot, and yeah, even though, again, they're going to undo it, the fact they had the balls to do it in the first place, you know, you got to give them all the credit in the world. So, for this reason and all these others, that is why Avengers Infinity War is the best film of 2018. Will its sequel carry on the legacy? Will it carry through and be the best film of 2019? I don't know yet. We're only one movie in, but the year's stretching before us. We got a clean slate, and let's see what comes out of it. So I'm excited for 2019 at the movies. I'm excited to keep doing these. I hope you all and my regular viewers are excited to come along for the ride, and hopefully we'll pick up some new viewers as we go. But if not, you know what? I'm really happy the people who do tune in and join me for the drive home. So thanks a lot for the views. Keep watching, and as always, drive safe, and I'm going to see you at the movies.